A former WWE NXT superstar returns to Impact Wrestling at last night's Under Siege event. Plus, we have new Impact World Tag Team Champions. WWE reportedly are interested in an Impact Wrestling star after his AEW Dynamite debut this past week. Plus, a former Impact World Champion is set to return from injury imminently. We also have news on 2 departures and why Moose chose Impact Wrestling over WWE. All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling News. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of Impact Wrestling, especially after last night's Under Siege event. We have a new knockout, or I guess a returning knockout, back on the Impact Wrestling roster, that being Mia Yim. Yes, Mia Yim has returned to Impact Wrestling as a surprise, in a surprise appearance at last night's Under Siege event. Now, Mia Yim made her return last night to Impact Wrestling at Under Siege. Now, according to a new report from Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful Select, who actually was at the event last night, so I'm sure he spoke to quite a few people from Impact Wrestling, this return for Yim is not a one-off. She is actually signed with the company. Now, we don't really know the full details of contracts. We never truly really do with Impact Wrestling. We don't know if it's a short-term deal, if it's a long-term deal, if it's an exclusive deal, if it's a handshake per appearance deal. We don't know. I would suspect, and this is pure speculation on my part here, that it's probably some sort of short-term deal. It could be long-term, you never know. But certainly it's a great pickup for Impact Wrestling in a Knockouts division that maybe needs a little bit of rejuvenation. It is still very strong, but I do look at potential opponents for someone like Kiera Hogan, and I see Tasha Steelz rather. I still see Mia Yim as a real contender, as someone that can absolutely 100% be the next Knockouts champion. So I think it's a great signing for Impact Wrestling. Now, Mia Yim took to Twitter and reacted to her return to Impact Wrestling. She tweeted, quote, "Home sweet home and happiness." Of course, when I say it's a return, because Mia Yim was with Impact Wrestling from 2015 to 2017. During her time with the promotion, she is a former Knockouts champion. She was the 2016 Queen of the Knockouts. Now, of course, she was released by WWE in November last year due to budget cuts alongside her husband Keith Lee at the time. Now, Yim made her in-ring return last month at the WrestleCon Mark Hitchcock Memorial Super Show. She defeated Athena, formerly known as Ember Moon. So again, I think it's a great signing for Impact Wrestling in a Knockouts division that's always rapidly improving and getting better. As I've spoken about before, in my opinion, the Knockouts division is probably the second best women's division in the world, or certainly in North America right now. I think for what it's worth, WWE's women's division is still very strong. We know that, and obviously too, we know that they've got a lot of big stars. But Mia Yim is absolutely perfect for what Impact Wrestling needs right now. Now, to me, it was somewhat surprising, it must be said, because I did think, I really did think that she might be involved in AEW. We know the Owen Hart tournament is upcoming, and we know that there's a Joker in the men's and women's tournament. And I think a lot of people were thinking, you know, possibly she could be the Joker for that AEW tournament. So I was slightly surprised, honestly, to see her in Impact Wrestling last night. But I think it's a good move, honestly. I think that she probably sees how things are maybe going with AEW and the women's division and the scrutiny that it has right now. And to be honest, because of that, it's probably best that she goes to Impact Wrestling. The Knockouts are main eventing shows. The Knockouts are main eventing pay-per-views. And I think Mia Yim wants to be a part of that. Now, obviously, you know, and maybe, who knows, maybe it could be a case of Keith Lee saying to her, actually, you know what, I came here for good money, but also at the same time, I'm not being used, shall we say, particularly well right now. I'm not being used to the best of my abilities. You know, he's struggling to make it on Rampage. Maybe he's saying, actually, you know what? The women's division here, it is what it is. The roster here, it is what it is. It's so, you know, it's so bloated and it's so, you know, vast that actually, you know what? Maybe it's probably a good thing you go to Impact Wrestling. You'll shine there. You'll get a spotlight there, and absolutely you can be Knockouts champion again. And she knows a lot of people there as well, and she knows how they're going to treat her. And after, I guess, you know, how it actually worked out with her in WWE with a decent NXT run and then a main roster run that included Retribution and then just nothing, I'm sure she probably hopes and wants just to be used properly. And she knows she's definitely going to get that in Impact Wrestling. So I think it's a great great signing for Impact Wrestling, and it was a nice surprise last night at Under Siege. Also at Under Siege last night, we saw new tag team champions crowned. Now, only weeks after dropping the Ring of Honor tag team championships, the Briscoes are now the new Impact World Tag Team Champions because they were crowned last night at Under Siege. The Briscoes, Jay and Mark Briscoe, defeated Violent by Design, which was Dina and Eric Young with Joe Doring at ringside, to become the new Impact World Tag Team Champions. Of course, this is their first title reign in Impact Wrestling. Now, before losing last night, Violent by Design held the titles since defeating the Good Brothers at Sacrifice back in March. I mean, it was a no-brainer, honestly, realistically. It was a no-brainer for me. I think that, as I mentioned before, I'm sure this was probably part of the deal, you know, in terms of getting the Briscoes in. And Impact Wrestling have been very, very smart about this. First of all, obviously, it's a great signing for them. It's a great signing because, you know, for a lot of the controversy that comes with them, and again, rightfully so, they are still one of the best tag teams on the planet right now. They always have been, and they will continue to always be just that great. And with the potential departures, you know, from the tag team division coming soon, we're going to talk about one that was in a tag team that has just left, but also we know the Good Brothers, their contract's coming up right now. You know, the Impact Wrestling Tag Team Division has undergone quite a lot of changes over the course of the last couple of years. At one point, it was super, super strong. It had the Good Brothers, it had the North, it had the Motor City Machine Guns. And Alex Shelley went away for a while. He's now back, so the Machine Guns are kind of back. But the Good Brothers are probably going to be going. The North no longer exists. One of them is the Impact World Champion and Josh Alexander. The other's in AEW and Ethan Page. So they need new teams. They need established teams. And they need great tag teams. And obviously the Briscoes fit every single one of those categories. So I think, again, it was probably part of the agreement, you know, come in, we'll make you tag team champions, we'll build this next iteration of the Impact Tag Team Division around you. And it's a smart call, frankly, by Impact Wrestling. So great signings and a great tag team. And it'll be interesting to see who they go up against in Impact. Now, Morrissey. A lot of people have been talking about the former Big Cass this week because of obviously his debut on Dynamite on Wednesday. And WWE officials were watching. They always are. But they were very impressed by the AEW debut of Morrissey, formerly known as Big Cass. According to Andrew Zarian on the latest episode of the Mat Men Pro Wrestling podcast, this is what he said, quote, "I'm not going to say that WWE is going to take him, but I can tell you that WWE is definitely impressed by him," Zarian said. "There's no way around it. I got a message last night while he's coming out and somebody wrote, 'Did you see this effing guy?'" Now, earlier on in the podcast, Zarian said a number of people were inquiring about Morrissey's contractual status, saying, quote, "I got a couple of messages about him from people wanting to know when his contract ends." Now, of course, we spoke about this previously here on the channel, but Morrissey's contract with Impact Wrestling was set to expire in November. Since then, he's been reportedly working for the company on a handshake per date deal. On this week's episode of Impact Wrestling, Morrissey defeated Brian Myers in a tables match just a night after appearing live on Dynamite. He and Jordan Grace have been in a feud with Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green and Myers for a while now. So, look, I think, and if you've seen a lot of interviews that Morrissey has done, I think he wants to get back to WWE, certainly. To me, there's no doubt about it that he wants to get back to WWE. The way that all ended for him was incredibly sad because it was ended by addiction, frankly. And he's very open about it. You know, he said that he was drinking a lot. He had a lot of substance abuse issues. We know what happened to him after that as well. It got worse and worse. And eventually he went to rehab and he's turned himself around right now and he's getting the opportunities because of it. And as I've said a million times here on the channel, WWE really, really, really liked Big Cass. That's why when Daniel Bryan came out of retirement, or was medically cleared, shall we say, he was forced into retirement. When he was medically cleared and he was to wrestle again after coming back at WrestleMania 34 in 2018, his first feud was with Big Cass. And that was because WWE thought a lot of Big Cass. They thought he was going to be a future world champion. And to be honest, I think they probably released him through gritted teeth in the case of, man, this guy's issues are just getting in the way of what would be a really promising career, because he legitimately nearly is 7 foot tall and he looks great and he's everything that WWE wants. So they really didn't want to release him at the time, but they had to because of his issues. And again, now that he's turned himself around, he looks to be in the shape of his career on top of that as well. No doubt they're looking at him again and going, we told him to go away, get your stuff straight, and he's absolutely done that, and who knows? And again, we don't really know his contractual status at the moment, honestly. We know that he's on a handshake per date deal, which probably means that WWE could pick him up tomorrow if they wanted to, but so could AEW. And this is exactly what Morrissey wanted. When he was when his contract expired with Impact, it was from, I think it was Rebellion to Bound for Glory, and he signed a short-term extension after that. We heard those reports and those interviews saying, look, he's asking for a lot of money. He feels like he's proved himself to Impact Wrestling. He knows his value. He knows his worth. And now at this point, you've got 3 companies, essentially, that are all bidding for him. And that's exactly what he wants. So chances are he will get what he wants. Do I expect him to stick around in Impact Wrestling? Honestly, no. The only reason I could see him sticking around is if Impact give him exactly what he wants financially. But I think, he wants to be on the biggest stage. And he felt like going to Impact Wrestling was an attempt to prove himself, to prove that he had turned himself around, which he's done successfully. But there will also be something, I suppose, in the back of his mind saying, well, this is a company that gave me a chance when none of the other big companies were willing to do that. And that does mean a lot to people. So again, I think if they do give him what he wants financially, then maybe he'll have a stronger decision to make. But I would also think that probably his goal ultimately has been to go back to WWE. But on the flip side, he might be thinking, actually, you know what? Dynamite, AEW, they gave me an opportunity when WWE didn't either. So maybe I'll go there too. So I would say watch this space when it comes to W. Morrissey, because being Willie Mack is officially no longer with Impact Wrestling. He took to social media to announce that his deal with Impact has expired and that the episode of Impact on Access TV this week would be his last after he declined the latest contract offer from the company. Quote, after last night's Impact episode, I am no longer with Impact Wrestling. My contract has expired and I decided to decline their new offer. So now I'm going to be doing my thing on the independents. And he put out his booking email. It said, if you want to see me in your city or your town. Now, Mack last appeared on Impact programming during the May 5th edition of Impact on Access TV, where he teamed up with Rich Swann in a losing effort to the Bullet Club's Jay White and Chris Bay. The former X Division champion made his Impact debut in October 2018 and was a staple of the company's X Division before signing a multi-year deal with the company in May of 2019. I was a big Willie Mack fan. I think that he is such a fun wrestler because he's got that. You look at him and you think, okay, this is a guy that can do X, Y, Z, and then you see him wrestle and you go, oh, he can do the whole alphabet, not just X, Y, Z. He can do it all. So I was a big fan of Willie Mack. I think it's probably, again, when contracts expire, chances are it's a financial issue. And I think that he was probably on a larger contract previously, and I think Impact wanted to maybe negotiate maybe a lower deal, and maybe he decided not to do that, felt that there was more money to be made on the independent scene, which, to be honest, there probably is nowadays because the indies are way back open after the pandemic. So best of luck to Willie Mack, and again, don't rule him out appearing in Impact Wrestling again in the future. Speaking of departures as well, Jonah has officially confirmed that he is done with Impact Wrestling also. Jonah has finished up with Impact Wrestling. He also took to social media to announce that his deal with Impact is up and hasn't renewed with the company. He said, quote, there's a wild chapter in the book of Jonah and this is all about PCO. He is not human. Impact, see you down the road. Now, of course, he last made his appearance on Impact's May 5th edition of Impact on Access TV, where he lost to PCO in that Monsters Ball match during the main event of the episode. Of course, he made his debut at Turning Point in November last year. He had a short contract with the company that ran through the Rebellion pay-per-view. And this was, I think, again, this was always going to be the case. I think his run at Impact, when he signed, it was widely reported that his priority was New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was basically working these Impact tapings around his New Japan dates. He was doing the New Japan Strong tapings as well. But his goal was to be going to Japan more regularly and doing those big shows for New Japan in Japan, which is going to be happening this summer now that travel's opening back up to go to Japan. So I think now it's just a case of him saying, look, I've got these dates in Japan that I want to do now, and that's what I'm going to be going to do. So I really enjoyed his run. For as short as it was, as he mentioned, his chapter, his feud with PCO was great. I absolutely loved it. Two big guys that were doing crazy stuff and beating the hell out of each other. I'm a big Jonah fan. I feel like he has proved a lot of people wrong coming out of his release from WWE. Even though his work in NXT I thought was a lot of fun, I was really shocked that Vince McMahon didn't see anything in him. Whatever, considering he likes big guys. But I'm a big fan of Jonah, and I think he'll do really, really well in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I really do. Finally, Moose, we have an update as to why he re-signed with Impact Wrestling and turned down a WWE deal that was actually a lot closer than people thought. Now, I was saying this a lot at the time. When Moose's contract was coming up with Impact Wrestling, I said at the time, WWE wants him. They absolutely want him. Now, a lot of people were saying, no, because of his history, blah, blah, blah. I said, no. they want him because he has improved exponentially. He's got the background they look for, his look, physically he's transformed. On the mic, he's way better and his matches are fantastic. And this is exactly what happened. Impact Wrestling star Moose reportedly had informal talks with WWE for a deal that would have likely taken him straight to the main roster. No NXT developmental run for this guy. That was reported in the summer of 2021 that Moose signed a new 2-year contract with Impact Wrestling, despite significant interest from WWE and some rumored interest from AEW also. Now, at the time, Impact officials wanted to re-sign Moose before he hit free agency, but he received some feelers from WWE officials who are no longer with the company. Now, Fightful Select Sean Ross Sapp adds that Moose confirmed to them in a new interview that he had decided to leave Impact for WWE until Impact Wrestling's Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore approached him with a final offer which got him to stay. Now, this offer was reportedly very financially significant, but furthermore, the feelers from WWE reportedly led to informal talks between the two parties, and there were pitches for him to go straight to the main roster, but of course everything such as that has to be signed off on by WWE Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon. Now, Impact officials, once they heard this, came in with a significant offer and a major improvement to his old deal, but their offer required a quick response in signing it. So basically, they heard, oh dear, Moose is going to go, and Moose has decided to go, and he's going to go straight to the main roster, and he's going to become a big star for WWE. And they got the sign-off from Anthem. They said, look, we want to sign this guy. We need to re-sign this guy. They said, okay, this is what we're willing to give. We don't give it to anyone else, but we're willing to give it. And they went, okay, this is what we're willing to offer you, but you've got to sign it basically today. And he did. He decided to stay with Impact. WWE sources noted there was no heat on him for making that decision. I think once they heard of how much money was offered to him, they went, oh, good for him. Really good for him. Now, of course, this isn't the first time WWE tried to sign Moose, so they wanted to bring him in for Tough Enough a few years back before he left Ring of Honor for Impact. One of the officials who sent feelers to Moose was former Senior Vice President of Development Canyon Seaman. He was let go from the company last summer. So that was kind of the situation. So it was way closer than I think people thought. Did he make the right decision? Probably, ultimately, yes. I do expect at some point, one day, maybe to see Moose in WWE, though. As I mentioned again, he has the look and the style and the background that people are looking for. I know people will talk about his past and all that kind of stuff. But I do think WWE sees money in him. But good for him. He got a really good deal for a very part-time schedule. And he can also do independent dates. And he became world champion. I don't think you can argue much more that he probably made the right decision there. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's Impact Wrestling news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestling News 365, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.